back like we never left. You got big baby Stef over here, A-Lot 13 as well, as always. And Stef, we're continuing these rookie breakdowns. Today we're getting into the one George Pickens, who was drafted in the early second round to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Was it early second? Might have been mid-second. Don't quote me on that. To the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Stef, I know Pickens has been your boy before the draft. The Steelers landing spot, the draft capital, checks a couple of extra boxes for you. He's a guy you've been taking late first round, even mid to late first round. Stef, I want you to tell me why I should be spending a first round dynasty pick on George Pickens.
Man, I love George Pickens. And to clarify here, he went 20th in the second round, so we can call it second round draft capital. But the reason I love George Pickens is because the fact that he missed all this time as a junior, really only appeared in 4 games. He tore his ACL in spring practice, but he came back, showed flashes in the SEC and national championship games against Alabama. He was able to rehab and get back on the field, even though he wasn't 100%. All of these scenarios with the injury on George Pickens make him what I believe a massive discount. This is a buy window. It's like day one, there's a buy window on George Pickens where you can get him for cheap, because this is a guy that was a lot of people's wide receiver 1 at the start of 2021, looking ahead to the 2022 draft class. He was ahead of Treylon Burks, ahead of Drake London. George Pickens was the guy for a number of reasons. First, he broke out super early as an 18-and-a-half-year-old freshman in the SEC. That's a 96th percentile breakout age, one of the most important things you want to see for your wide receiver prospects. And what you saw with George Pickens in those 12 games as a freshman was that he was the wide receiver 1. I know Georgia's a run-first team, but he was still the wide receiver 1 on that offense, a 15% target share, 727 yards, 8 touchdowns, was responsible for 23% of the team's receiving yards, and had a 79% catch rate on 82 targets as a freshman. So right away, when George Pickens stepped on the field at 18 years old in the SEC against the best talent that you'll find in college, he was already putting up great numbers for a freshman. And then in 2020, in 8 games, he didn't play the whole season, but was on pace for 832 yards, 59 receptions, 10 touchdowns, and 18% target share on an offense that was absolutely brutal. Georgia was 7th in the SEC in pass yards per game with Stetson Bennett, JT Daniels, timeshare in that backfield, but an 85th percentile yards per reception from George Pickens. So we thought, okay, the volume wasn't necessarily there, and none of the weapons, admittedly, in Georgia really had a ton of volume. We've said the same thing with Zamir White and James Cook. They just spread the ball around a lot, and this is a team that wants to run first and play good defense to win college football games. But we saw the efficiency was always there for George Pickens, and we thought, okay, coming into his junior year, they finally figured some things out at the quarterback position. This is the year, and it was a championship roster in Georgia, but Pickens just missed the season. Imagine if Pickens just continued his progression and had something like a 22% target share, 1,000 yards, 14 touchdowns. This would be a guy that we're looking at as one of the premier options in this class. And so I'm seeing this as an injury discount on a guy who is 6'3", 200 pounds, runs a 4.47. It's only 21 years old, has that early declare out of the SEC, got the second-round draft capital. And this is a player that is lanky, has a strong catch radius. He has great speed in the open field. He can make yards after the catch. He's a physical receiver. You see him posting videos on his social media outlets, picking fights with people on the sidelines. And that is one of the reasons that I've seen in some of our Dynasty leagues. Shout out to everybody in the Discord rocking with us in the DMS Dynasty Startups. But people are like, oh, George Pickens gets into too many fights. Based on a social media video that he put out to build some hype for the draft, fade that noise 100%. And if anything, I want that out of George Pickens, because he has to fight his way up a depth chart with Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson. I know they brought in Calvin Austin. He doesn't really scare me too much, but Pat Freiermuth's there. Najee Harris is there. This is a guy that I want to be an absolute dog, because I think he can turn into that Devontae Parker, AJ Green, DJ Chark type of tall, lanky receiver that's still super explosive, can get downfield, can score touchdowns, and be a prototypical athletic X receiver in the league.
Sheesh, dude. I mean, drop the mic. We could wrap it up right now, but painted a beautiful Van Gogh level picture of the profile and why we love George Pickens. I don't think I need to add much to that piece of the equation, but I do want to talk a little bit about the other side of the equation, which is the landing spot. You mentioned the draft capital, which we obviously love, but I want to talk about the landing spot and the opportunity in Pittsburgh. It's been a mixed bag from what I've seen. Some people, us included, will say this is great. Pittsburgh's got a great – I'm going to get into some of the reasons of why it's great. But the other side of the coin is people are saying, oh, he's buried on the depth chart. He's going to be the number 3 at best. They have a terrible offensive line. The quarterbacks are going to suck. It's like, whoa. Let's slow your rope there for a second, and let's look at the track record of these Pittsburgh wide receivers. So first of all, Pittsburgh is a stable organization with Mike Tomlin, who Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season as a head coach. The offense has always been solid. Like last year, they had no business being in the playoffs, none at all. And so you love a stable organization that's not just going to throw Kenny Pickett to the Wolves, who they just drafted at quarterback. Also means Pickens is probably going to get a chance. That pick-to-pick stack, as we like to call it, is going to have a great opportunity this season. And I just want to look at the track record the Steelers have with wide receivers, because they have been absolutely incredible at drafting wide receivers on day 2 and beyond. And part of me thinks, 1, they're just good at identifying talent. And 2, you have to believe they're also good at developing these wide receivers once they're in the building. It's twofold. So George Pickens joins a long line of succession of successful day 2 receivers. Most recently, Chase Claypool. In 2020, they drafted Claypool. We can say what we want about what's going to happen to Claypool in the future. Looks like his sophomore season wasn't really what we wanted after a fantastic rookie year. But Claypool's had back-to-back years of 800-plus yards, a touchdown threat, definitely kind of lived up to the hype as a second-round pick and made a splash. The year before that, Deontay Johnson in 2019 in the 3rd round. Deontay Johnson now, 170 target guy last season, clear number 1, dominant wide receiver. He's in our top 12 Dynasty wide receivers right now. Deontay Johnson was an absolute smash. They got him in the 3rd round. You go back a year before that, James Washington. This is probably the one miss that they had. James Washington only was in Pittsburgh for 4 years. He was a late second-round pick. Really good production profile in college. He had one season of close to 750 yards, but outside of that really has just been a plug-and-play number 4 receiver for the Steelers. And then, of course, before that we had Juju Smith-Schuster, late second-round pick. He had the monster 1,400-yard season with Antonio Brown there as he was the number 2. And then if we rewind all the way back to 2010, they got Antonio Brown in the 5th round, or 6th round, excuse me. So you look at the track record for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the receiver position. You got to love that for George Pickens. Then if we want to break down the situation, there's going to be targets to go around, even with Deontay and Claypool there. If we just look at James Washington, Ray McCloud, and Juju Smith-Schuster, that's 100. I'm doing quick math on the fly. That's 135 targets last year to James Washington, who's gone, Ray McCloud, who's gone, and Juju Smith-Schuster, who's gone. So there is plenty of targets to go around. And also Najee got 94 targets last season. That was because Big Ben and his noodle arm couldn't get it more than 5 yards downfield. I don't think we can expect Najee to get that many targets next season either. So with Trubisky back there or Kenny Pickett back there, I think it's going to mean good things for these wide receivers, and they're going to be just fine. So I think for his rookie season, he's got an opportunity to splash. And if we want to project out, Deontay is going to be a free agent after the 2022 season, doesn't have an extension as of now. And then Chase Claypool going into 2023 could be looking for a contract as well. So we'll see what happens with him. So I think there's a clear path for Pickens if he hits as a rookie or if he flashes as a rookie to be the number 2 receiver for the Steelers in 2023. And it's not out of the question that he'd be the number 1.
And we've seen in this wide receiver market, we talk about inflation in the economy in 2022. There's been inflation in this wide receiver market that's been absolutely ridiculous. The Christian Kirk contract that everybody's talked about so much, we could see Pittsburgh take an approach of, hey, we already have George Pickens, Deontay. We don't need to pay you a monster extension, even though you're top 5 in target share in the NFL. So that gives Pittsburgh a lot of room if they like what they see from Pickens to say, okay, Deontay, go get paid by someone else. We'll move Pickens into our wide receiver 1 chair. If it's not Claypool, who did disappoint in year 2. And as we get closer to the season, specifically for redraft season, we'll be diving into Claypool's outlook, Pickens' outlook, Deontay's outlook in this offense with a lot of questions at quarterback. This is a new era in Pittsburgh. So hit that like, hit that subscribe button if you want to keep rocking with us. We'll keep cranking out the videos.